I was standing in the kitchen putting away groceries when Tessa pointed at the crayon drawing on our fridge. It was a stick figure family Mia had made last week, complete with a lopsided sun and our dog Max. Tessa sighed, like the drawing personally offended her. "We need a fresh start without baggage," she said, voice flat and casual like she was discussing paint colors. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Put her up for adoption." My throat closed up so fast I couldn't even form words. I turned around slowly and saw Mia standing in the hallway, still clutching her backpack strap. Her face looked like someone had just told her the world was ending. Tessa grabbed her carry-on suitcase and announced she needed space to think. I drove her to the airport in complete silence, pulled up to the curb, yanked her luggage out, and said, "You're absolutely right. My fresh start begins right now." Before I even pulled away from the curb, my phone buzzed. Her message read, "If you don't fix this situation, I'll make sure everyone thinks you're not fit to be a father." That night, Mia sat on her bed with her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked so small, curled up like that. "Am I baggage, Dad?" she whispered, and her voice cracked on the word baggage. I wrapped my arms around her and held on so tight my shoulders ached. "No, sweetheart. You are my whole heart," I told her, but my voice shook when I said it. After Mia finally fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room scrolling through Tessa's texts. She had written that she could talk to the right people and make my life extremely difficult. I took screenshots of everything, created a folder on my phone, and felt something cold settle in my chest. My phone rang suddenly, cutting through the silence. The caller ID showed Mia's school office number, at 9:30 at night. That wasn't normal. I answered on the second ring, and the principal's voice came through, apologetic but firm. She said someone had tried to update Mia's emergency contact information that afternoon, and they wanted to verify it was actually me who requested the change. The next morning, I drove straight to the school before classes even started. The secretary walked me through what happened. Tessa had called yesterday afternoon sounding perfectly calm and professional. She told them she was family and needed to be added to the pickup list for Mia's safety. My chest tightened because I had never, not once, put Tessa on any authorized list. I signed new forms right there, set up a password system, and made it crystal clear that only I could approve any changes to Mia's information. As I walked back to my car, I spotted Tessa's silver sedan parked across the street from the school entrance. She was sitting there watching the front doors like she was on some kind of stakeout. When she saw me looking, she smiled and gave a small wave like this was completely normal behavior. My phone buzzed immediately. Her text said, "Good, you're paying attention now." I drove away trying to keep my breathing steady. This wasn't just anger or hurt feelings anymore. This was something calculated and deliberate. Something darker. That same afternoon, I sat across from Ms. Patel in her law office that smelled like old books and coffee. My voice cracked embarrassingly when I had to repeat Tessa's words about adoption out loud. Ms. Patel didn't look shocked, but her eyes went sharp and focused when I showed her the threatening messages and the school's call log. She told me to document absolutely everything from this point forward. Every text, every call, every interaction. She also told me to stop communicating with Tessa unless there were witnesses present. "Set up security cameras at your home," she added, writing notes on a yellow legal pad. "And whatever you do, keep Mia's routine as normal as possible. Kids notice when adults panic." I left her office feeling sick to my stomach, but at least I had a plan now. That evening my phone rang while I was making dinner. It was Jade, a mutual friend who worked in the same building as Tessa. "I saw Tessa last week at a networking event," Jade said carefully, "and she definitely wasn't alone." There was something heavy in the way she said it. Jade and I met at a quiet cafe downtown where nobody we knew would randomly show up. She slid her phone across the table and showed me a photo from some corporate happy hour event. Tessa was in the picture, leaning close to a guy with dark hair and an expensive watch. His hand rested on her waist in a way that looked way too comfortable and familiar. Jade zoomed in slightly. "His name's Ryder. He works in Tessa's department." My chest felt completely hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides with a spoon. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but photographs don't usually lie. When I got home that night, there was a small silver gift bag sitting on my front porch. No card, no note, nothing to indicate who left it. Inside was a necklace I'd never seen before and a hotel key sleeve. The hotel name printed on it made my blood run cold. I stood there under the porch light holding that key sleeve, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The late nights, the sudden need for space, all of it. The next morning, I searched through my email inbox using the hotel name. I found a booking confirmation dated 3 weeks ago, right around when Tessa said she had that overnight work conference. The confirmation was under my email address because Tessa used it years ago to sign up for travel rewards points, to save money on trips together. The dates matched perfectly with nights she claimed she was working late at the office. I sat in my car in the parking lot staring at my phone screen. My face felt hot with shame and anger burning together. Then Tessa called, and her voice came through sweet as honey. "We can still fix this whole misunderstanding," she said gently. "But you need to stop being so dramatic about the kid's situation." When I didn't respond right away, her tone switched instantly. "If you won't choose me over her, I'll make you regret it." I hung up without saying anything. 2 hours later, a woman from Child Protective Services left a voicemail on my phone, asking to schedule a home visit as soon as possible to discuss concerns about Mia's living environment. The child services worker showed up the next morning with a polite professional smile and a clipboard full of forms. She explained there had been an anonymous report claiming Mia was unsafe and frequently left unsupervised. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I kept my voice calm and steady. I invited her inside immediately. Mia was sitting at the kitchen table doing her math homework, completely safe and content. The worker noticed that right away. I showed her Mia's daily schedule, my detailed childcare plan, and then I showed her the threatening text messages from Tessa. The worker said she had to complete the full investigation process regardless, but her expression softened considerably when Mia ran over and hugged me, asking, "Dad, is everything okay?" After the worker left, I checked my doorbell camera footage. Sure enough, there was Tessa standing outside my house the previous night around 11. Just standing there on the sidewalk, staring at my front door like she was planning her next move. The timestamp was clear as day. That weekend I took Mia to the park, desperately trying to act normal even though my chest felt tight with anxiety. Mia laughed on the swings and went down the slide a dozen times, but I noticed she kept glancing over her shoulder like she expected something bad to happen. On the walk back to our car, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photograph of Mia at the park, clearly taken from a distance, probably from across the street. Under the photo was one sentence, "You can't hide her from me forever." My knees felt weak, but I didn't let Mia see my face. That night I barely slept at all. At sunrise I drove directly to the school and asked the security office if I could review camera footage from the last few days. The security guard looked concerned but pulled up the files. What I saw in those recordings made my blood run cold. Tessa had approached the school fence during afternoon pickup yesterday. She waved at Mia through the fence like she was being friendly and called her over. The footage showed Tessa reaching through the fence and grabbing Mia's arm, not violently, but firmly enough to make Mia cry. Then Tessa stepped back and pulled out her phone to take a photograph of Mia's tears, like she was collecting evidence for some twisted story she was building. I wanted to put my fist through a wall, but instead I forced myself to breathe slowly and asked the security guard for a copy of the video file. I took it straight to Miss Patel's office. She watched the footage twice without saying a word. When it finished, she looked up at me with a grim expression. "This isn't a misunderstanding or a custody disagreement," she said quietly. "This is a deliberate pattern of harassment and manipulation. We filed paperwork for a protective order that same afternoon." When I got home exhausted and drained, there was a new message waiting on my phone. It was from someone named Ryder. The message was short and direct. "We need to talk. It's about Tessa. She's planning something worse than you think." I agreed to meet Ryder at a coffee shop near his office building because I absolutely refused to let him anywhere near my house or Mia. He showed up looking nervous, constantly rubbing his hands together like he couldn't sit still. At first, he tried downplaying everything. "Look, it wasn't anything serious between us," he started saying. Then I pulled out my phone and showed him the hotel booking confirmation and Tessa's threatening messages about Mia. His entire face changed color. He admitted Tessa had told him I was emotionally cold and mentally unstable, and that Mia wasn't really part of her long-term plans. Then Ryder did something I genuinely didn't expect. He pulled out his own phone and offered to forward me their private message thread. In those messages, Tessa had written things like, "If he won't let go of the kid, I'll make him look dangerous to everyone." As I read through them, my stomach twisted into knots. Ryder leaned forward and whispered, "She mentioned something about a dinner party. I think she's planning something public to embarrass you." 3 days later, Tessa invited a bunch of mutual friends and family to what she called a closure dinner at her aunt's house. She was acting like she genuinely wanted peace and resolution. I decided to go because I needed witnesses to whatever she was planning, and I kept Ms. Patel's business card in my jacket pocket like some kind of safety blanket. Tessa worked that room like she was performing on Broadway. She cried softly into a tissue, telling everyone she, quote, "feared for her safety around me." People were staring at me like I was some kind of monster. I waited until she finished her performance, then quietly said, "I can prove what she actually said about my daughter." I pulled up my phone and showed screenshots of her baggage messages and the adoption demand, all in her own words. The entire room went completely silent. Tessa's tears stopped instantly like someone flipped a switch. She leaned in close so only I could hear and hissed, "You just made an enemy for life." As I turned to leave, she slapped my shoulder hard and yelled loudly, "He scares me." I heard multiple phones start recording immediately. That same night, Ms. Patel reviewed videos that people had posted on social media from the dinner. She pointed at one particularly clear clip that someone had uploaded. It showed Tessa's face up close, looking angry and calculating, not scared at all. The next morning we went to court, and the judge granted a temporary protective order keeping Tessa away from Mia until a full hearing could be scheduled. I felt genuine relief wash over me for the first time in weeks. That relief lasted exactly 4 hours. The school called my cell phone that afternoon. Someone had shown up at pickup, claiming to be Mia's new authorized caregiver. This person had a printed document with my name typed at the bottom, but the signature was obviously forged. The school's secretary sounded shaken when she described it. School security detained the woman until police arrived. The woman eventually admitted someone had paid her to attempt the pickup. She said a blonde woman had given her Mia's full name, school address, pickup times, and promised cash payment if she acted confident and official. The police collected the woman's phone as evidence, and sure enough, there were text messages from Tessa's number giving her detailed instructions. I sat in my car in the school parking lot afterward and cried. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet tears, because the reality of how far Tessa was willing to go genuinely terrified me. When I finally got home, there was a new voicemail from Tessa waiting. Her voice sounded calm and almost cheerful. "See? I can reach her whenever I want to." The casual threat in those words made my skin crawl. I immediately saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Ms. Patel. She called me back within 10 minutes. "We're ready for the full court hearing," she said. "But I'm warning you now, Tessa will try one last major move before then. People like this always do. They can't help themselves." I asked what I should do. "Document everything," she repeated. "And don't engage with her at all, no matter what she says or does to provoke you." The court hearing happened the following week on a cold Tuesday morning. Tessa showed up dressed in a soft pink sweater and minimal makeup, looking innocent and vulnerable, like she'd carefully planned her outfit as a costume. She told the judge I was deliberately keeping Mia away from her and claimed I was emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous. My chest burned with anger, but I forced myself to sit quietly and let Ms. Patel handle it. Ms. Patel played the threatening voicemail for the judge, then showed the school security footage of Tessa making Mia cry and photographing her tears. She presented the text messages and the police report about the attempted unauthorized pickup. Tessa's carefully constructed mask started cracking as the evidence piled up. Her voice actually cracked when she tried to explain herself, and for the first time she sounded genuinely rattled instead of calculated. The judge granted a stronger long-term protective order and warned Tessa that any contact whatsoever would result in immediate criminal charges. As we walked out of the courthouse, Tessa stared directly at me and whispered, "I'll ruin your professional reputation at work next. You'll never work again." 2 days after the hearing, I scheduled a meeting with the ethics compliance team at Tessa's workplace. I wasn't doing this to be vindictive or cruel. I was doing it to stop her from using her professional connections and coworkers as weapons against me and Mia. I brought copies of the hotel booking that was charged to company travel expenses, the message screenshots where she bragged about manipulating situations, and Ryder's written statement describing their affair and her stated plan to erase the kid from the picture. The ethics officer was a serious woman with gray hair who didn't smile or gasp. She just took careful notes and said, quote, "Thank you for bringing this information forward. We take these matters extremely seriously." By the end of that week, Tessa was placed on administrative leave while the company conducted their internal investigation. She stopped posting lies about me on social media because she finally realized every false claim would be answered with documented proof. That Friday afternoon, I picked Mia up from school and took her for ice cream. She asked me quietly, "Are we actually safe now, Dad?" I held her small hand in mine and said, "Yes, we're safe. And we're not starting over without baggage." I smiled through the tightness in my throat and added, "We're starting over with the very best part of my entire life."